No matter what happens, keep a clean heart.
Mama!
The night my mother died, the moon refused to shine. Clouds covered the sky like a heavy cloth, and the wind cried through the tall palm trees behind our mud house. I was only 12 years old, but that night pushed me into a life I never asked for. As my mother took her last breath, she held my hand tightly and whispered, "No matter what happens, keep a clean heart." I did not understand her words then. I only cried and called her name until my throat hurt. By morning, everything in my life had changed. My name is Nkeru. I was born in Umueko village, a quiet place surrounded by red earth, thick forest, and a long river that sang at night. My father was a respected hunter and farmer. My mother was gentle and kind. People said her smile could calm angry spirits. Our home was not rich, but it was full of peace. Every evening, we sat by the fire, listening to my father's stories and my mother's soft laughter. That peace died with her. After my mother's burial, my father became a different man. He grew silent and restless. He stopped telling stories. He avoided the fire at night and stayed out longer in the forest. I tried to cook and clean like my mother used to do, but I was still a child. Sometimes the pot would burn, and sometimes I would cry alone at the riverbank.
No matter what
The
happens,
elders of the village began
keep
to
a
whisper.
clean heart.
They said a man should not stay alone for too long. They said I needed a woman in the house to guide me. I did not know that those whispers would bring the greatest trouble of my life. One market day, my father returned home with a woman named Ugoma. She was tall and fair-skinned, with sharp eyes that never rested. Her lips were always tight, as if smiling was painful for her. She wore fine wrappers and coral beads, and people stared at her as we walked through the village. My father said she was his new wife. He said she would be my stepmother. My heart beat fast with fear, but I forced myself to kneel and greet her the way I was taught. From the first day, I felt cold around her, even under the hot sun. She looked at me like someone looks at a stubborn goat. She did not answer my greeting properly. Instead, she asked my father why I was so thin and dull. That night, she took my mother's sleeping mat and placed hers there, as if erasing her presence from the house. I cried quietly, hiding my face in the corner. At first, I hoped she would be kind. I told myself that maybe her heart was just tired. But soon, her true nature showed itself like a snake from tall grass. She gave birth to 2 children within 3 years, a boy and a girl. From that day, my suffering began. Every morning before the cock crowed, Ugoma would kick my mat and shout my name. I fetched water from the river while the sky was still dark. I swept the compound until my back ached. I cooked and washed and worked until my hands cracked. Her own children slept long and ate fast. If food finished before I ate, she would say it was my fault. When I made a mistake, even a small one, she beat me with a broom or slapped my face hard. My father was often away hunting or farming. When he was around, Ugoma became sweet like honey. She praised me in his presence and told him how helpful I was. When he left, her face changed again. I learned to cry without sound. I learned to hide my pain. One evening, something happened that showed me just how wicked my stepmother was. I had cooked soup with the last piece of dried fish my father brought home. Ugoma tasted it and threw the spoon down. She accused me of poisoning her. She shouted so loudly that neighbors gathered. Before I could speak, she poured hot soup on my arm. I screamed in pain as my skin burned. She told everyone I was an evil child sent to destroy her family. The village people murmured. Some believed her. Others looked away in silence. I stood there shaking, my arm blistering, my heart breaking. That night, I ran to the river and cried until my eyes were dry. I remembered my mother's words about keeping a clean heart, but my heart was heavy with fear. As days passed, Ugoma's cruelty grew worse. She stopped me from going to the village school. She said education was a waste for a child like me. While other children learned to read and write, I carried firewood on my head and hunger in my stomach. Sometimes, at night, I looked at the stars and wondered if my mother could see me. But unknown to my stepmother, the ancestors of Umuaka were watching. The old Iroko tree behind our compound had stood for hundreds of years. Elders said it had everything and forgot nothing. Many times, as I rested under that tree, I felt a strange comfort, as if someone unseen was listening to my silent prayers. One late evening, as I returned from the forest with a heavy bundle of firewood, I heard Ugoma speaking to a strange old woman near the back of our house. They did not see me. I hid behind the tree and listened. What I heard that night made my blood run cold and changed the path of my destiny forever. I stood there, holding my breath, as the wind carried their voices toward me. I stayed hidden behind the Iroko tree as the strange old woman spoke in a low voice. Her back was bent like a dry branch, and her eyes looked dark and deep, as if they had seen many bad things. Ugoma stood close to her, looking around nervously. "She is too much trouble," Ugoma said. "That girl carries bad luck. Since she came, my sleep is not sweet." The old woman laughed softly. "Children like that do not disappear by themselves," she said. "If you want peace, you must act." My heart began to beat like a talking drum. I pressed my mouth with my hand so I would not cry out. "I want her gone," Ugoma continued. "But I don't want people to suspect me. Her father must not know." The old woman nodded slowly. "There are ways," she said. "Send her on an errand that spirits love. The forest beyond the black rocks. If she enters it at night, she may never return." Fear ran through my body like fire. The forest beyond the black rocks was forbidden. Elders warned children never to go there. They said angry spirits live there and punish wicked hearts. I knew then that my stepmother wanted me dead. When they finished talking, the old woman disappeared into the darkness. Ugoma went back into the house. I stood there for a long time, shaking. The firewood fell from my head, but I did not care. That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the roof and waited for morning. The next day, Ugoma behaved strangely. She did not beat me. She even gave me food in the afternoon. Her voice sounded sweet, but her eyes were cold. In the evening, she called me to her. "Nkiru," she said, "you have been lazy lately. Tomorrow, you will prove you are useful." I bowed my head. "Yes, Mama." She smiled. "There is a special leaf I need for medicine. It grows beyond the black rocks. You will go and bring it back before nightfall." My hands trembled. "Mama," I said softly, "the elders said children should not." She slapped me hard. "Are you now an elder?" she shouted. "Do you want to challenge me?" I kept quiet. That night, I packed nothing. I prayed silently to my mother and the ancestors. Before dawn, Ugoma pushed me out of the compound with an empty basket. "Do not return without the leaf," she warned. "If you do, you will regret it." I walked toward the forest with heavy steps. As I crossed the last farmland, the air changed. The trees became thick, and the light grew dim even though the sun was rising. Birds stopped singing. My heart was full of fear, but my legs moved on. When I reached the black rocks, I wanted to turn back. Suddenly, I heard a gentle voice behind me. "Child, why do you cry with dry eyes?" I turned quickly. An old man stood there, leaning on a staff. His beard was white like cotton, and his eyes shone softly. "My stepmother sent me," I said, my voice breaking. "She wants me to die." The old man looked at me for a long time. "The wicked dig pits but fall into them," he said. "Go on, child. Fear will not save you, but truth will." Before I could ask more, he vanished like smoke. Gathering courage, I stepped into the forbidden forest. Inside, the forest felt alive. Trees whispered. Shadows moved. I walked until my legs ached. Suddenly, I saw a small hut made of leaves. In front of it sat a woman with skin as white as palm oil and hair as long as night. You are welcome, daughter, she said. I have been waiting. I fell to my knees, shaking. Please, I mean no harm. She smiled gently. I know. I am a messenger of the ancestors. Your tears have reached us. She led me into the hut and gave me food that tasted sweeter than anything I had ever eaten. She touched my burned arm, and the pain disappeared. Your stepmother's wickedness has crossed the line, she said. But justice in the land of spirits is slow and sure. She gave me a leaf. Take this. It is not poison. It is truth. When the time comes, it will speak. She showed me a safe path out of the forest. When I reached home, night had fallen. Ugoma looked shocked to see me alive. You came back, she asked, forcing a smile. I gave her the leaf. Yes, Mama. She snatched it and said nothing. That night, she could not sleep. I knew something had begun, something she could not stop. I lay on my mat, staring at the dark, knowing my life would never be the same again. From the night I returned from the forbidden forest, fear moved into our house like an unseen guest. Ugoma no longer slept well. At night, she tossed on her mat and spoke in her sleep. Sometimes she shouted my name with anger. Sometimes she cried like a child. In the morning, her eyes were red, and her temper was worse than before. She blamed me for everything. If her soup burned, she said it was my shadow that spoiled it. If her children fell sick, she said I carried bad spirits. She began to insult me openly, calling me witch child and forest rat. But she did not beat me again. Something held her hand back, and I knew it was fear. My father noticed the change. One evening, as we sat near the fire, he looked at me closely. Nkiru, he said, what is happening in this house? I lowered my eyes. In our culture, a child does not speak against an elder easily, especially a wife to her father. I shook my head and said nothing. Ugoma laughed loudly. This girl is just lazy, she said. Too much rest is making her dull. My father sighed. Still, he said, I see fear in your eyes, child. That night, I cried silently. I wanted to tell him everything, but my tongue felt heavy. I remembered the words of the spirit woman, justice is slow and sure. I decided to wait. Days later, strange things began to happen. Ugoma cooked with the leaf I brought from the forest. She added it to her soup, thinking it would give her power over me. But after eating, she fell sick. Her stomach twisted, and she screamed in pain. She ran in and out of the house, vomiting and crying. The village women gathered. Some said it was bad food. Others whispered about punishment from the spirits. Ugoma pointed at me with shaking hands. It is her, she shouted. She brought evil into this house. I was dragged before the elders. My heart beat fast, but I stood straight. One of the elders, a very old man with deep lines on his face, asked me where I got the leaf. I told them everything. I spoke slowly but clearly. I spoke about the forest, the spirit woman, and the plan to send me to my death. The village became quiet. Even the wind seemed to stop. Ugoma screamed and denied it. She rolled on the ground and cursed me. But the elders were not fools. They ordered the strange old woman, the one Ugoma met at night, to be brought. After much searching, she was found hiding in another village. When she was questioned, she confessed. She spoke about Ugoma's hatred and her plans. The truth came out like morning light after a long night. My father fell to the ground and cried. What have I done? He asked. He held me tightly and begged for my forgiveness. It was the first time I felt safe since my mother died. The elders ruled that Ugoma must face the ancestors. She was taken to the shrine to swear innocence. Everyone knew that anyone who lied before the ancestors would suffer greatly. At the shrine, Ugoma shook like a leaf in the wind. She tried to speak, but her mouth twisted. Suddenly, she screamed and fell. She confessed everything, even the things we did not know. She confessed her jealousy, her cruelty, and her plan to kill me. The elders sent her away from Umweka village. She was banished to a far land where no one knew her. Her children were allowed to stay, under the care of my father and the village women. Peace slowly returned to our home. My father became gentle again. He sent me back to school. I learned to read and write, and my mind opened like a flower in the rain. Sometimes, at night, I still sat under the Iroko tree. I thanked the ancestors and remembered my mother. I knew my journey was not over, but I was no longer alone. Yet, deep in my heart, I felt something waiting ahead, something that would test my strength once more. Life became quiet again in Umweka village, but quiet does not always mean peace. Even though Ugoma was gone, the shadow of her wickedness still walked behind me. People smiled at me now, but some smiles were thin. Some villagers still whispered when I passed. In an African village, words travel faster than the wind, and bad stories are hard to bury. My father tried his best to make up for the years of pain. He woke early to cook when I was tired. He listened to me when I spoke. Sometimes, he would just sit and watch me, his eyes full of regret. I failed you, he once said. I did not protect you. I held his hand. You are here now, I replied. And I meant it. I returned to school with joy. Sitting on the wooden bench again felt strange, but sweet. I was older than many students, but I did not care. Knowledge tasted better than food. My teacher, Madam Ifinanya, noticed my hunger to learn. She often kept me behind to teach me extra lessons. She said my mind was sharp like a new knife. But peace never lasts forever. One dry season afternoon, sickness entered Umweka village. It started slowly. First, a child. Then an old woman. Soon, many people were coughing blood and growing weak. The herbalists tried their roots and leaves, but nothing worked. Fear spread like bushfire. Whispers returned. It started when that girl came back from the forbidden forest. I told you spirits don't bless humans for free. Maybe she brought something with her. I heard the whispers. They cut me deeper than Ugoma's beatings. I stopped going out often. Even at school, children avoided me. Some refused to sit beside me. One evening, the village crier beat the gong. All villagers were called to the square. The elders sat in a circle, their faces heavy. This sickness is not ordinary, the chief said. The ancestors are angry. Someone among us has offended them. Slowly, eyes turned toward me. My heart sank. An elder stood up. The girl entered the forbidden forest and returned alive. That alone is not normal. Another added, ever since then, strange things have happened. Before I could speak, voices rose. Some defended me. Others accused me. The noise grew loud. Then Madam Ifinanya stepped forward. If you punish a child because of fear, she said, you will invite greater punishment. If the ancestors want truth, let truth speak, not noise. The elders agreed to consult the shrine. That night, I could not sleep. I remembered the spirit woman's words. Truth will speak. I wondered if this was the time. At dawn, I felt a strong pull in my chest, like an invisible hand guiding me. Without telling anyone, I walked toward the old Iroko tree. The air was cool. The world felt still. Nkiro, a voice called. I turned. The spirit woman stood before me, just as before, calm and bright. The village is in danger, she said. But fear has blinded them. What must I do? I asked. She placed a hand on my chest. You must return to the forest. The source of the sickness lies where greed once touched the sacred earth. I was afraid, but I nodded. This time, I did not go alone. When my father discovered I was missing, he followed my footprints. He found me at the edge of the forest. I am coming with you, he said firmly. Inside the forest, the trees opened a path for us. We walked until we reached a hidden stream. The water was dark and thick. The sickness comes from here, the spirit woman said. Someone tried to steal sacred clay years ago. The land has waited for cleansing. My father fell to his knees. I was there, he confessed. I followed others. We were greedy. Tears filled his eyes. The spirit woman instructed us. Together, we performed the cleansing rite using leaves, water, and truth spoken aloud. As my father confessed, the water cleared. The forest sighed like a resting child. When we returned to the village, we brought fresh water from the stream. The herbalist used it, and slowly, the sick began to recover. The village gathered again. This time, there were no whispers. The chief stood before everyone. The child you accused has saved us, he said. From today, Nkiru is under the protection of the ancestors. People bowed their heads. Some cried. Some came to touch my hands. That night, as I lay down, I felt peace settle into my bones. But deep within me, I knew one chapter was still left to be written. The rains came early that year, soft and steady, washing the red earth of Umuaka village clean. It felt as if the land itself was breathing again. Crops grew tall, children laughed freely, and sickness became a memory people spoke of in low voices. For the first time in many years, I woke up without fear sitting on my chest. The village treated me differently now. Elders greeted me with respect. Women called me child of favor. Children followed me, asking questions and laughing. But I did not allow pride to enter my heart. I remember too well how quickly love can turn to stones. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, my father called me to sit beside him. Nkiru, he said, the ancestors have marked your path. You cannot live like an ordinary girl anymore. I listened quietly. The chief and elders want you to train as a healer and keeper of stories, he continued. Not to leave the village, but to serve it. Tears filled my eyes. I thought of my mother, of her gentle hands and calming smile. I knew this was her path, flowing into mine. I would do it, I said. My training began under the guidance of the oldest priestess in Umuaka, Mama Odochi. She taught me about herbs, dreams, and the language of silence. She taught me how to listen to the wind and respect the earth. But most of all, she taught me about the heart. A wicked heart destroys itself, she said. A clean heart becomes a home for light. Years passed like flowing water. I grew into a woman. I helped deliver babies, healed wounds, and settled quarrels with calm words. People came from far villages to seek my help. Still, I never forgot where I came from. One dry season afternoon, a tired woman arrived at the edge of Umuaka. She was thin, her clothes torn, her eyes full of regret. When I looked at her face, my heart skipped. It was Ugonna. She had aged badly. Her beauty was gone, replaced by suffering. She fell at my feet and cried. Please, she begged, forgive me. My life has been ashes since I left this place. The village watched in silence. All eyes turned to me. This was the moment the ancestors had prepared me for. I remembered the beatings, the hunger, the burning soup, the night she planned my death. Pain rose in my chest like an old wound opening. Then I remembered my mother's voice. Keep a clean heart. I lifted Ugonna up. You wronged me deeply, I said. But I will not carry your evil in my future. I gave her food, water, and medicine. The elders decided she could not stay, but she was not cursed or harmed. She left the village at dawn, alive and humbled. That day, something heavy left my soul. Under the Iroko tree that night, the spirit woman appeared one last time. You have passed the final test, she said. Forgiveness is the highest power. She faded into the wind, and I never saw her again. Today, when children gather around me at night, I tell them my story. I tell them about wickedness and patience, about pain and truth, about how darkness always overplays its hand. And when the moon shines bright over Umuaka village, I smile, knowing that even the deepest suffering can grow into wisdom, if the heart remains clean. The end.